Welcome to to the significantly less uh, accidental Outcast Intellectual Podcast. This time we were able to start on time, more or less.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
And this time we are going to be going over how there's always an excuse to be made, but it's still bullshit.
What?
Oh, and by the way, Chris said I should probably swear less. We'll see how that's going to fucking go.
I think it's
Point
actually
being-
okay, right? Oh, you do you, man.
I figure, better to remember who we're speaking with, who mostly probably won't care, but maybe eventually I'll tone it down. Anyway,
All right.
it's
Right.
kind of funny that I think you're the one who decided to cover this topic like at this spot in the calendar, because last week we were going over how basically the people from the movie Kung Fu Panda, who basically created the villain,
Right.
basically had no responsibility. So it makes sense to go the other direction now, where like we basically pointed out how he had every reason to end up the way he did, but of course it didn't work out well. So that's probably a good place to start. But oh yeah, if you're watching this for the first time, that's recording or whatever, we're not politically correct. If you don't like that, then this isn't the podcast for you. So,
Right.
So the thing with Tai Lung, in case you're watching this episode before you watch that and you haven't seen the movie, is that he's the villain from the movie Kung Fu Panda. And basically, spoiler alert, he had been raised by the Master Shifu to become what's called the Dragon Warrior at their temple. I mean, it's called Kung Fu Panda. There's a Kung Fu temple. And when the older master said, this isn't him, he went crazy, beat the hell out of a bunch of people and tried to take it. The old master stopped him, put him in prison, and then the true Dragon Warrior, also known as Jack Black, gets pointed at and he becomes Dragon Warrior. So Tai Lung breaks out, comes back after it, and ultimately ends up fighting Po and loses and gets killed off screen. And nobody, like, people are like, if you think about it, like killing somebody by going badoosh is like way eviler than even Tai Lung was, because it's like, no, you like doesn't matter.
Right.
Hashtag Bengal lives matter. But like I said, not politically correct. And so the thing with that is, because Tai Lung is basically raised from infancy to wants to be that Dragon Warrior. I guess it seems like for this example, there are two real different sides with it, because there's when he initially attacked everybody when he was told he couldn't be that warrior, and then there's when he broke out of prison, because like there are different factors and excuses to be made, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Where like the first time, like he was like really excited and he felt like he like had earned this, he was really talented, he worked really hard, and then he was told no. But he was also younger. And the second time he had more time to think about it all and everything, but he'd also been in prison, so he's going to be even more bitter than usual. And I don't remember if in the movie, I don't think he knew who the Dragon Warrior guy was going to be. So I don't think it's like he's like, you're just giving this to some random fat panda, So I don't think that was part of it. But what do you think in regards to like the first time, like when he'd been raised and he thought he was going to be this Dragon Warrior, and then he's not, and how he reacted? Do you think that does the excuse element even come into play at that point, or like what do you think?
I mean, again, it's all boils down to matter of choice, right? How you actually decide to react to certain things, right? And that's why I actually want to like open up to on the question of like, there's been like parts of your life, of course, that you'd think if it were someone else, if it was someone like that wasn't you, they'd react differently, right? If it was like, let's say, uh, let's talk about how life was like before you got into copywriting, right? Before you uh decided to go on about your journey as well, where you're at right now, like you'd think to yourself that there were some parts of your life that you could have done it differently, right?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that was there like some points in their life where you know you knew that it was a matter of choice that you decided to go about whatever you're doing right now, or sorry, I'm just going off tangent here,
So
or like you were presented a problem, and you could have like decided to not do anything about it, or like
mhm.
just going about your own thing, doing your own stuff, and not go do the opposite thing that makes it that was actually harder. Like for in case of Tai Lung, right? He could have like easily again he could have like easily go down the path he was at, where he was just going on a rampage and well basically reacting horribly at the fact that he wasn't chosen as a dragon warrior. But the harder part in or like the harder flip side of that was that he was going to actually just accept it and become rational about it. Would you say that there's been like some parts of your life where you think that it would have been easier to react this way, but you decided to do the other thing instead because it was what you thought was right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess another aspect of it is because I mean, if you really think about it, there is no rational reason given that he couldn't be the Dragon Warrior because they don't give any reason that like he was sadistic or he was mean spirited or anything as far as I remember before he was just said like no kid you're not going to be it, but at the same time he could have just said why not instead of be like ah like
Right.
there was a spectrum of response to it. So I guess even from the perspective of like I deserve this, there is still like and again this is like not taking into account the fact that like the Shifu guy should have maybe taught him how to have a conversation instead of just fighting it out. Uh, but once again, putting the onus on him to say, okay, why not? Like these people have been raising me since I was little. What am I not doing that makes you think that I'm not worthy of this? And in that sense, he could have still been like, well, you didn't say that I wasn't worthy, so why am I not worthy now? He could have still brought it down to a conversational element, which of course would be unrealistic because he was probably a teenager, I imagine, when they did that. They don't really say what age he is at any point, but yeah, I can see how there's definitely that knee jerk reaction, and then there's what you should do, even
You
if it's
should
not
do.
realistic. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but I think
Definitely.
I guess that gets into, well, I was going to say that could get into like a whole thing of like when you're not thinking ahead, like what the excuse would even be, but that would be getting me on another tangent. Um, so that's how he could have responded in that situation. Obviously, this isn't all about like Kung Fu Panda, so I'm not going to try to focus on that the whole time. But then later on, when he's been in prison all that time and he's older and he's had space away from it, but he's also more bitter. So this is kind of like rather than like it's your responsibility, like when you're a young adult, a teenager and such, your responsibility as an adult when theoretically you should be more mature, but you also have more of life's nonsense like in your brain and like those grooves, those habitual grooves and thought patterns are more ingrained as well. Um, I guess I think the main thing, and again, this is ignoring the fact that nobody tried to like rehabilitate him or anything. They just put the boulders on his wrist and said, "Hey, hopefully he never gets out." The wise old kung fu society. Um, when he does break out, it's you know it's, it would have probably been like a better ending if instead of killing him off, like as soon as he finds out that the whole dragon scroll thing that he was trying to get to become the dragon warrior like was just nonsense. It just shows you. And then Poe like gave him a life lesson, but no, never mind. That would be too intellectual. You could couldn't have kids trying to understand. Okay, rant over. Um, so for people who've been through the situation like that, something was basically unjustly taken away, even if it's valid, um, and they feel like, well, like I deserve this, and you're in the wrong, so I'm going to come after you because like, yes. I guess how would you respond to that kind of notion in that case as well?
I think I'd actually be, of course, naturally be mad about it or confused too. Like, again, I've done most of the things that led up to that moment, and it just like gets taken away from me, right? But still, I think if it were me in his place, I'd personally like take a step back and evaluate why things didn't work out as things. I mean, as how I thought it would work out, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, take the pieces and keep moving forward. Uh, right. So anyway, so going back to the whole idea, right, of like there's always an excuse to be made. I think it's like it's a very interesting topic if you think about it. Like again, a lot of people we tend to give excuses on like certain things that trouble us. Like for example, if there's like a challenge or there's like something like an obstacle that's hard to get over, right? There's always an excuse to it,
Mhm.
right? And what I'm trying to say is that for the many reasons that you could give yourself as an excuse, there's also like another like list of reasons why you should do it anyway. That makes sense. Like again, there's 100 reasons. I mean, there was 100 reasons why Tai Lung turned that way, but there could have been also 100 reasons why he should have done the other.
Okay. I mean, yeah, choosing to see it that way. I mean,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Okay, so I guess I could like put this back to one of like the big turning points in my life, right? At least like a little bit of a story of how I also encountered these kinds of situations where I was
Situation.
brought up to my life to think about things differently, to actually approach things differently, right? And all of a sudden, I took the other turn, nonetheless. And
Okay.
this was like, and I think one of the biggest things that really captured this like whole idea of like there's always a choice, there's always an excuse, there's always like uh, there's no such thing as there's a reason that forces you to decide on one thing just because of like how you're brought up to that point, right? And I think again this ties back to like my story in like college, how going into college I was like this guy who was very socially awkward. I was this guy who would strike up the weirdest, most awkward conversations with people and like get him in like this very uncomfortable uh situation or moment with me, right?
Okay.
And like it got to a point where I was also talking with people and I didn't know that some of the words that I told them was actually offensive, was that bad. And again, it was primarily because like growing up I was just I was used to just being at home. I was used to just like watching TV series, watching movies, playing video games, reading books, and not really having that much social interaction like outside of the family. So of
Okay.
course, when like my parents like dropped me in college, like, hey, you do you. I was like, if I would have put a level of like emotional maturity or maybe social maturity, right? That would be that of like a 12-year-old. I didn't know jack shit of how to like talk to people. I was like, again, very socially awkward. And what I did to actually like address this, right? I told myself, shit, if I'm gonna be doing something about this, I need to do it right now, right? I mean, granted that my vision back then was still like building a business, right? And we all know that as a person who uh, leads his own business, you need to be able to communicate with your team. You need to be able to like negotiate deals or whatsoever, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, when I thought about it, if I'm gonna be like this, how am I gonna be that person that other people will actually follow if I can't even like communicate with them properly or at least confidently, right?
Yeah.
And so what I did about that was that, okay, coming in the second year, I was I was literally like thinking about it, brainstorming all the different ways I could like improve my social skills. And then like, I tried my best. I mean, I was talking to my friends and tried out different like personalities, different hats that suit me, and it always ended up me just like offending them or like rubbing them in the wrong way, right? So what I did
Right.
was that, okay, how about this? I'll I'll go to the place where almost everyone forgets you the next day or at least like the next week at most. So I did what every college kid would do in the height of their colleges was to go out drinking. And I wasn't going out drinking. I wasn't hopping in bars because I wanted to get like drunk. I didn't want to get hammered by like just drinks and like do drugs or any kind of that shit. I mean, full disclosure, I never done any of those. Okay, right. But then like I came into it for the sole purpose of improving my social skills. And at first it was just hectic, man. Like I was just like talking to different people, hopping to like different tables, and they'd like just ignore me. I would see them roll their eyes as soon as like I approached them, just because like I was just this small guy approaching them on their
Oh,
table,
so you're
right?
approaching me?
Right, and it was just so awkward, and I got to a point where I was so desperate of like getting into that table with like some random guys, and I'd actually like buy them drinks, like, hey, could I buy drinks and stuff like that. And yeah, it was so bad, man. And like some people would actually insult me, being like me being weird and all that stuff. And yeah, it was embarrassing at most parts. But then I went on doing these things, and every single time I went out and like watch these like charisma matrix videos in YouTube just so that I could like get an idea of how people really act. And then that's when I started like getting a feel of the pattern of like what words were offensive, what words were actually uplifting for other people, what words were fun, and like
Mhm.
how I can actually hold a conversation, a meaningful conversation. And I guess I brag about it, right? It got to a point where at the end of it, after like a whole year of doing that, people were buying me drinks instead of me buying them their drinks, right? Because they like being me being in their table. I was fun being around with. So I became somewhat of a socialite at some point, right? And again, it goes back to like the whole idea of the whole notion of like, again, it's all up to you. It's all up to your choice. It's all in uh your decision if you want to do something about something that you think is unchangeable or impossible to change, just because you've been taught to live that way for the longest of time. I spent 17, no, 18 years being like that kid who's like, very anxious in social like situations or like, social groups. I'd be like that kid who's just like, be silent on the side and not talk, not contribute to the conversation. Then again, I decided that no, I don't want to be that kid. Even though this is going to be hard, I'm going to do it anyway because like, it's I think at that time that it was necessary,
Right. And I
right?
mean, it pretty much was. And it's the funny thing is, and it was because, I mean, we live in society, therefore social skills are a necessity, really. Like even if you're a computer programmer, you still need to be able to talk to your team, right? you still need to have the communication understanding that you need to check in on a project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even if you're still using like weird ass language, like you still need to at least have the social awareness to know that, oh yes, I should be checking in right now. And that's the thing, is like what you pointed out is that you were paying attention to this does this does that. At the end of the day, it's still it, a lot of people, particularly introverts, think you're just born with it. Like you're either outgoing and confident in this or that, or you're
Right.
introverted and you're just not going to be that way. And I mean,
Right.
because of the space that we're in, like we know that's not true, but
Yeah, definitely.
you
Okay,
know,
this is a funny thing, right? So before I did that, before I did the whole experiment of like social interaction, like going out, drinking, and all that stuff, I was like
mhm,
I took like the Myers Briggs something test about finding out about your personality, and I was like a full introvert. I was like the most introvert of introverts,
mm,
right? And then when after the whole experience, I took it again, and of course answered as honestly as I could, and I became like an ENFPJ. So that's like extrovert, right? Someone who could actually
right,
lead a campaign or some stuff like that. I mean, that's what my sprig
right,
told me. But again, you're right. It's not like if you're always like that, you're gonna be like that throughout the rest of your life. It's not set in stone. It's all in your decision whether or
right,
not you want to you know change it up, or change yourself. Do you want to do the hard thing and
yeah,
uh prevail in whatever you want to sort out, what you actually initially sought out for?
yeah. I mean, it's and I, I don't know if it's Louis or Luis. I hate saying people's names wrong, but I might be saying his whole name wrong. Louis was saying that he feels like that too, kind of insecure about himself, and uh, I mean, he mentioned that while you're explaining like getting out into college and everything. And the funny thing is that I had the same kind of experience coming out of high school because I was home instructed like the last 4 years. I didn't have a girlfriend until
Wow.
I was 19. Like I never went to, I think I went to one school dance before that. And like I was just mad antisocial for a long time. That's just how I was. And I didn't want to be around people. Like in my case, it was different because I had a more typical original upbringing, but then I was like, fuck these people. I don't want to be around them. But then
Right.
because your adolescent, like your teenage years are just such a formative period, particularly socially and
Mhm.
all that. I was like really socially, I don't even mean, I was socially awkward, but I was also just nasty. So
Nasty in what way?
just no, like nasty and like I don't want to talk to you like you're an idiot, because a
Right.
lot of people are idiots. So that was part of the thing is, but anyway, um, and we could have both just said, oh, this is the way I am, right? The personality test that
Exactly.
you took,
Hmm.
particularly these days, because this is where the non-PC part comes out. A lot of people are sheltering themselves, and they're also encouraged to do this by others inside these little boxes. So it's like
Yeah.
you have this personality, you have that disorder, you were raised in this culture, so that's how you are. Like neuroplasticity is a thing. It's your brain adapting to what's going on around it. You are not stuck anyway. And that's why for me, like if somebody like suggests like a personality test, I'll take it because like whatever. But I've never really bought into that stuff. Like I will look at it and see if anything rings true and if I can learn anything from it. But I'm not stuck one way. And the
Yeah.
thing is that what keeps you stuck a given way is believing that that's the case. And it's the same thing as when people believe like the whole point that there's an excuse for everything, but none of them are valid.
Hmm.
It's like, for example, I've known people who call themselves depressed, like throughout my life, but they always say I suffer from depression and I can't just turn it off. I can't just do whatever. I'm not saying that there isn't like a brain chemistry element to it, but how the hell are you supposed to change anything when you tell yourself day in and day out, I can't do this. I'm suffering with this. I'm done. I'm stuck with this. I'm depressed. I'm this and this. Like you are doing extra work. You're making a god out of your pain in that case. And like with both of us, we could have just said, oh, well, this is just how I am, and I'm just going to be stuck like this. We had that excuse. We had the empirical proof from when we were socially awkward. But we didn't use that as an excuse because I think a big part of it is I like to say that there's an excuse for anything. So you might as well make an excuse to grow rather than an excuse to hide and or to hide rather than hide. Um,
What? All
but
right.
this is what my buddy King used to say, that we don't hide, we hide, like HYDE. Um, but the thing there is, and it goes to a concept that I'm not going to go into too much, but people wanting to be better versus feel better is that the people who are making excuses for everything, what they're really doing is finding a way to feel better, to
Yeah,
feel more comfortable. And
definitely.
like
Definitely.
they could say that like, well, I don't feel better, I feel horrible, but you feel familiar. And
Mhm.
that's the thing that, reason why a lot of
Yeah,
people do that.
yeah, funny thing is, we're actually watching this like I was like going through, I think it was my Instagram or
Yeah,
YouTube,
Rebecca.
and like I watched this video of uh Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think it's
Arnold, yes.
Arnold, right?
If you
And
plan to
then
leave, then be keen.
right, and then he was talking about like how people should never always have people should never have a plan B, because when you have a plan B, that's energy you're diverting from plan making plan A happen, because you have plan B to fall back to and be comfortable with. And
You
that
don't
just
even
hit
believe you'll succeed at plan A.
right. And this is rung true to me. Like I've always like, at most parts I've always like had like plan B. And when I think about plan B, it's like, oh, it's just comfortable. At least if plan A doesn't work out, I'd have something to fall back to, and life will be easier. But then I remember those times when I didn't have a plan B. I remember those times when I only focused on plan A, and I did everything I needed to do to make it happen, right? And that was me like a year ago. Actually, like, yeah, about a year ago this day, right? Like going after, like right after like celebrating my 22nd birthday, right? I was still like, I had no direction in life. I mean, I would I was given the option to either just go into a law school and like live a comfortable life, and just follow my parents like wishes,
Mhm.
and just do that, be safe, play it safe,
Right.
right? But then I thought about it like, and then what? Will I be? I looked at myself. Will I be happy doing all of this, right? And I answered it like as truthful as I could at that time. I knew for a fact that I wasn't going to be like, sure, it's gonna be easier. I mean,
Right.
at the law school is still hard, passing law school is still hard, but at least like my future there is a whole lot clearer.
Yeah.
Whereas compared to like going in like this path that had only chance to support me,
And
right?
that's the dangerous thing about it, is that people, on the one end, it's like, oh, it's, well, this isn't safe, it's not comfortable, but in a way it is. And so people, they throw up like a smoke screen and think it's like, well, you're wrong because it's like, this feels horrible, or like I didn't want to do that. But at the same time, it felt more reliable. It felt like, there was that natural inclination towards it, you know.
Right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I also want to mention because oh, okay, so Lewis is asking. I'm checking the Facebook chat.
Okay.
You've seen this kind of the live call. We're doing this once a week right now on Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Eventually, I'll probably bully Christian into doing it more, but um, uh, and Rebecca was saying that like Plan B can be an escape or a distraction or an excuse to give up on what you really want, and that's the
Exactly,
path
yeah.
of least resistance, I guess, is
Hmm.
ultimately the best explanation for it. You
Right.
know,
And yeah, I after like listening to that like short talk, with Arnold, right? The great Arnold.
Arnold, yes.
I actually like took a step back and reflected. Like I've had like plan B and plan C. And, I've talked to you about like all my plans like coming
Yeah,
this
I
year.
mean, you had a plan B not that long ago when you wanted to, go focus on the ecom again,
Yeah,
more,
exactly.
exclusively.
R- Right. And again, it was like I really reached out. I reached into myself and I knew for a fact that I was just giving myself reasons to not make plan A work. I was just giving
Mhm.
myself reasons to like not feel bad if I don't do plan A, if I don't follow plan A, right? And again, I guess it goes back to, I mean, tying it back to the whole idea of like you always have a reason. You will always have a reason, and you're not like in this box to be limited by those reasons, right? I've always had like a reason to, again, not do copywriting. I've always had like
Yep.
a reason to not be in this call, but because
Always
it
an
was plan
excuse.
A, it was a plan A. There's I knew for a fact that there were just excuses. There's always going to be an excuse, but I wanted to make things happen. And yeah, again, here I am. Here I am in this call, even though it's like 11 o'clock, 11:32 p.m. here on my side, right? I could be like just dozing off, sleeping, but yeah, this is plan A for me, right?
Right. Yeah, and I
And
mean and I think part of that is taking responsibility for acting despite the situation, because one of the easiest things a lot of people will use as a cop out is like, well, you've never had it as, as bad as I have. But it's like,
mhm,
you've never had it as bad as somebody else, but they probably still did something. Like, for example, my uncle, not related, but through marriage, uh, his name was Nick Johnson, and he had a rare, I might get the specifics wrong, but it's like a degenerative nerve disease called Friedreich's ataxia. The daughter of the owner of uh, the restaurant Outback Steakhouse also has had it, and I mean, maybe she's dead, but anyway, like it attacks your whole body. And he went from being a little league viable athlete in college to barely being able to talk and move one hand by the time he
whoa,
died. But he became a mechanical engineer in Boston, which is an expensive ass city. And he continued, like, when he couldn't walk anymore, he was doing pull-ups. When he couldn't do that anymore, he was using a cane first, and then he was using crutches, then he used a walker, and then he used a manual wheelchair. And so there's always some excuse. But for everybody who's dealt with this or dealt with that, there was another person who dealt with the same thing or worse, but chose not to use it as an excuse to give up. I mean, freaking Stephen Hawking, you know, dude, well, I mean, he looked like he looked, he barely even talk for the most part. He couldn't talk. He had to use that data
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
One of the most renowned physicists of all time. Freaking Albert Einstein figured out, the beginning of his theory of relativity while working as a patent clerk. You know,
right, right. And again, yeah, it goes back to everything just being a choice. There is no there is no point where you could say I did this just because, right? Just because I was raised this way. I mean, sure, it does like contribute to the whole notion, right? Of like, what you are is made up from all the experiences that you've had in life and the
and how
decisions
you
you made in
responded
those,
to them.
yeah, how you respond to this experiences, right? But still, it all boils down to like just that one experience that changes, it flips the script, right? I mean, for
Yeah, I
example,
mean, I mean, but at the same time, every experience is that experience. It's only how
yeah,
you
yeah,
respond to it
how
that
you respond
defines.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
how
and
respond to it.
by the way, Lewis was asking you if you were from, and he showed a flag, but because I'm the one looking at the Facebook chat at the present, I don't know what that flag means, Luis. So maybe he is, but I couldn't tell you. It's a blue thing on the top and a red on the bottom.
Something on
Um,
the top or at the
I
bottom.
don't
No,
know where that is.
I'm
It's from the
sorry. I don't know where that
Philippines,
is, dude.
wherever the hell that is.
Oh wait, blue
Um,
on the. Oh yeah, yeah.
um, and also Maddie's here with us too, so it's cool to see him. We did a co-working together for a while, so it's pretty cool to see him in there, or
Right.
here rather. It's weird because I'm looking at the chat and it's like he's in there,
Yeah,
but like you're right
there
here.
with your ear.
Um, but
Right.
and that's really the thing is that a lot of people, the people who make excuses, view themselves as like the can getting kicked down the road. There is no movement, there is no control, there's no decision. It's just, something in the waves, everything is moving them around. Whereas people who, they always find a way to make things work, they're just like, well, no matter what the situation is, I'm me. So it doesn't matter what's happening. It's like when somebody says, like, well, you're not in that situation, you don't know how you'd react. For a lot of people, it's probably true because a lot of people don't have that much self awareness. But if you do have self awareness, then you know how you react, you know how you respond. And so if I was in a situation like if someone gave me like a crazy thing, like, okay, you have two buttons, and on the one side, if you press this button, like one of your friends dies, or if you press this button, a million people you don't know die. It's like, okay, so the million people aren't like any of my friends or anything. No, okay, million. Like I don't give a fuck. Like the people who matter to me are the ones who matter to me. But if
Right,
you
right.
don't know yourself, then what you value versus what you're expected to value could be, conflict. I think that's a
Conflict,
big
right.
aspect of it is the
Right.
excuses that people don't have the self-awareness to even know
Even know.
what they
Yeah.
want because they're so busy
Yeah,
being
yeah.
somebody else's chew toy.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Right. Hmm. Okay, so I actually wanted to ask you too, right? What do
Sure.
you think were like what do you think were again those moments in your life where you could have given 100, you were given 1,000 reasons to not do it, but you did it anyway?
I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, it's there was a time when I was dating a girl who was in high school. Everything was legal, um, and I found out you know, while we were involved, that she had been also involved with a family friend since she was a minor, and I mean, several years. And she didn't want. She literally actually got like my old Facebook account before I made this one banned, so that the guy couldn't find out about me. And even though like the family obviously didn't know about him because their dad probably would have killed the guy. But the point being is that, so there was that situation. And ultimately, I just didn't find being hidden from the hidden guy when the family knew about me to be, tolerable anymore. And so I talked to him about it, basically. So like, this is the situation. And then she, broke up with me. And then even though I worked at the school, that's how I met her in the first place. Uh, I told the staff about it because I mean, the fact that it was that deep, like it'd be one thing if you pick somebody else, but the point being is that I knew that because we were romantically involved, that it could be that it was dangerous for me in terms of my job, my financial well-being to mention that. But like, if I couldn't if I couldn't be the positive change like directly, I wanted to at least get rid of the negative aspects so that there wouldn't be someone, playing with their head like that. And I got fired for it, um, for mentioning it, which like I get it. But my point being is that that's the first situation that comes to mind where uh, like I had every reason to just be like, well,
Just-
screw her. I'm just gonna keep doing my job and make my money or whatever. But I was like, well, that's not right. Or that, or even just like getting into the copywriting because I mean, dude, I made in 2019, I made $14,000, which is not anything in New York. And like the first copywriting program I invested in was 3K. So and it's like I was still had all that thinking where it's like, oh, it's just a scam. So I had every excuse then to not do that. But I just thought like, well, maybe it's a scam. But if not, you know,
What
it maybe it could get me
happens?
closer to what I want. Yeah.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. So we both. I mean, most copywriters have always had like that moment, that they had all the reasons to just quit it. They had all the reasons to just drop
Never
the whole
start.
thing. They never start, right? Especially in the first few months where there's like no clients coming in, like you have no work coming into your table, and
Yep.
you were basically just relying on the fact that someone would be crazy enough to hire you,
Yeah,
right? If
because
you
you don't
had
even
no
believe you're worth it
experience.
yet.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, yeah. Moving forward, I remembered again, like, writing my first email for my mentor, right? And and the first email I wrote for him had like 80 plus comments, man. It was just like red line every single part. Like he just highlighted
It's usually how
like
it
the whole
goes.
docs. The whole docs, he just highlighted the whole thing. And I told myself, shit, this is like so much. This is like so much to work on. Like basically it was like in most comments it was like me not sounding native, or like uh not flowing well, and all the other things that make up kind of decent copy. And again, I had all the reasons to just drop it. I had all the reasons to just go back to plan B and you
Hmm.
know become a lawyer and stick with what I know, right, with what was comfortable with me. But I didn't. Right, I went on and still took the comments, and well, here I am right now. And I guess I want to like also ask you, like, what were those parts where what were those moments in your career where you thought that this wasn't going to work out, or nothing was making sense, but you did it anyway? You still like power through and get to where you are right now.
Right. Well, I guess the first thing, which is the most recent, is when I forgot to start recording the podcast before we started talking, and so now record on this computer
Oh my god.
because I had every excuse to just be like, no, no, I'm not going to do it. It's already been too long. But there we go. This is the Outcast Intellectual Podcast. Maximum fucks are given, but zero quarter is also given. Um, and so for me, the different times that I felt like I had every excuse to give up, or even when I wasn't thinking about it. Uh, I mean, I'm coming up on 2 years doing copywriting, and honestly, I mean, I didn't make. I had 1 month in 2020 that I made $3,000, and then October was my best month of 4,000. Like the October that just happened, and then in December I made 11,000. But like literally every other time from that, the most I made in a month was maybe $2,000. Maybe like under 3K, like maybe like 2,200 or whatever. But I mean, particularly here, that is not enough. Particularly like, and once I joined CA, which is $1,500 a month, like that plus my rent and stuff. So just the fact that I just so consistently was not getting results. Like I was getting better as a writer, but it was just it was like my only choice was either to harass people who might not even need my help or have no clients. That's what it seemed like for me for a while. And I definitely got burnt out by that. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm on a train and like I'm rolling past this and rolling past that. And like sometimes I'm rolling, through like a scenic mountain, and sometimes I'm rolling through a freaking junkyard, but I'm still going where I'm going. You know what I mean? And it's like
Right, right.
if it
Again, there's
sucks, it sucks.
there's 100 reasons for you to stop doing it, what you're doing. But again, there was also 100 reasons why you stick to it and actually
You pick
follow
which
through.
reason you pick which reason you
Yeah,
listen to.
yeah, exactly, man. And it really rings true about like how, again, no one's ever in this box. No one's ever in this like whole like notion where just because this is what's happening to them right now, this is how it should be all the damn time,
Right.
right?
Or what they're capable of for that matter. Because I mean, the like whenever people like ask prisoners of war or people in concentration camps and such, like what kept you going? And you know, if you see some pictures of these people, they're either getting tortured or they weigh, you know, they're like 5'10", they weigh like 70 pounds or like some crazy amount, you know. Uh, it was always their attitude, their mindset. They always found something positive to focus on or something to try to get through or something, you know, that they were doing. I mean, Anne Frank, who I'm pretty sure she died in the Holocaust, still wrote like a diary or a book or whatever while she was doing that. I mean, what was she like? What would she thought that she was gonna like release the book someday and become rich? No, like that was just like what she wanted to do. In a situation where you could say that there was no hope, and then you see like what her legacy was after that, and so on. So it's not always even just a matter of uh, like if you look on the bright side, then things will work out. Sometimes they don't work out, but you never know what
No.
impact that decision
Mhm.
will have, no matter how horrible and lack of control a situation might really give you.
Right, right. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about like again, everyone is given a choice, right?
But we have
That's
a
like
choice.
yeah, we have a
Nobody gives it
choice.
to us. It defeats the
Yeah,
purpose of having the choice.
right. And we always have a choice. It's always up to you how you make up for whatever experiences you're experiencing right now. Like you could one focus on the bad side of things, focus on the plan B, focus on whatever escape that is, or two, you could actually do the opposite of it and do what's hard, do what makes you uncomfortable. Like again, last year I was weighing 65 kilograms. Sorry, what's that in pounds? I think
I
that's
don't know
about
freedom. I don't know what it is in non-freedom currency. Freedom weight.
I think that's
65.
130 pounds.
But Plan B do the work. Like Rebecca. Rebecca's response is maximum caps. Yeah, so 65 non-freedom weight units. Yes.
Yes. Wait, what's that?
Oh,
Yeah, 65. Yeah, 65. 65 non-freedom units.
fine. I'll look it up. 65 kilograms to 2 pounds is 143 pounds. Point three.
143. Yeah, I was 143. Wow. And then after a year,
You got the
after a
pounds.
whole year, right? After a year, man, I'm at 100, 113, 115.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it did lose
Non-freedom.
a lot.
Sorry, but apparently I stole the show with Chris when I said non-freedom weight units. We're on a time
Right.
delay, by the way, guys. We're not like ignoring you.
But yeah, again, it's all a matter of choice. I could have like stayed fat, overweight, right? I could have like stayed like the chubby guy that I was like starting 2021. But no, I told myself that I'm gonna start learning all the things that needs to be learned if I were ever going to lose weight. So I started like just devouring different videos on YouTube, like different like
So you say
articles
devour
for
because like you lost weight.
uh, well, I guess I was devouring something else that was a
I
whole
mean,
lot healthier.
you chose what to devour.
Yeah, exactly. I chose what to consume, right? And yeah, I did at that time. And I just went on like just listening to different podcasts about like weight and fitness. I was listening to different like YouTube videos and like how the science between in weight loss, and just followed through, and here I am right now, right? About 30 pounds.
Up
Sorry.
30 kilograms, 30
30
pounds
kilograms,
less.
30
If you have
pounds
time to
less.
eat, you
Yeah.
have time to beat. Your personal fitness records.
Right. And again, man, that's why I don't believe that just because you're that way, you'll always be that way. Right.
Yeah, it's like, like, oh, like I'm born skinny, so I'm stuck being skinny.
Yeah.
It's
David
it's
Goggins, right?
ridiculous.
David Goggins.
Yeah, I
Is that
love
how
his book,
you?
Can't Hurt Me. Yeah, he had
Yeah.
that's a man who had every excuse in the world.
Every excuse in the world to just drop it and not give a shit about his life, but he
Yeah.
didn't, right?
Yeah, and I think the very telling thing about that, because people, I mean, we watch movies and such and listen to songs and whatever since we're little, and because it's what we want to watch and because we don't want to watch the boring stuff or hear about the boring stuff, movies always portrayed as this is the moment when everything changes. You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. Like that hype up moment. But real life doesn't work like that. The thing
Right.
is, like, not only do you not have like, oh, this moment, and then you go like bam, but even the thing where you make progress on, usually it doesn't it's not that
It's not a
straight like
straight line.
gradual
It's
up.
not a straight
It's
line. Yeah.
up and down.
I
It's
mean,
up and down, up
yeah.
and down, because you're working against your old habits. You're working against your old brain psychology or chemistry. You're literally rewiring, like, not literally rewiring, but figuratively
Actively
rewiring,
rewiring how you
you know,
think or how you approach things.
yeah, the physical like construction or whatever of your brain. And when it comes to those situations, usually you do succeed and then fail a bit. And that's another reason why people will think, oh, I already did this, so I've won. But even like what you mentioned, where a few years ago you had plan B, but then you chose plan A. You also had the plan B, plan A thing with the ecom when you were wanting to like focus exclusively on that. So these things never fully go away. And um, you can always you always have to make that choice. I think I don't remember who said it, but the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Because if you really want to be free and to be conscious and make your own decisions versus responding to somebody else's and then just being wacky inflatable arm waving tube band just getting blown around by the wind, you
That's one
you
way to
have no
put it.
choice but to always exercise your choice. And a lot of people, I think, again, they treat it like, oh, well, this situation just worked out for you, that's why things are going this well. Like, no, there are a bunch of
No,
times when it
man.
didn't go well. There are a bunch of times that are going to happen that haven't happened yet, that are going to screw me over, that I'm not going to be prepared for, but I'm still going to pull through it.
Going to pull through. Exactly. I mean,
And I
that's
think
why. Like,
that brings it back to like the heart of the matter, which is, why are people making excuses, right? Because it's 10:55. I mean, we can keep going. There's no hard limit on this, but I do want to at least like be trying to like drill down to like the deeper level of it, which is that I think that subconsciously a lot of people are smarter than they allow themselves to consciously be, which is why someone can be stupid as hell but come up with so many different excuses or convince themselves they're right, and so on and so on. Why? Because it's easy for us to think, oh, well, they're just an idiot and they're never going to learn. But why? Why won't they learn? And the thing for me is that it's because what they really want is to stay hidden, is to stay in their shell in whatever form that takes. And the reason for that is, again, it comes back to the comfort aspect, is that in the back of their mind, for them, comfort survival is always a prerequisite for everything they do. And because succeeding involves failing, because that's just how it works. You're not going to do everything perfectly the first time. It's just not how learning, works.
works. Yeah.
To grow, you have to accept on some level that you will fail and you're okay with that. But if comfort is all you ever care about, you need a reason to justify not taking that
Not
action.
to take it. Yeah. Again, the reason.
The excuse.
The
The people are still working based on on reason, on rationale. even if it's a dumbass rationale, there's still like a
They're still
rationale
doing
to
it.
it,
Yeah.
you
They still
know.
have it. Yeah.
And that's what it comes back to, and that's why people fall in line. That's why people will work at a freaking assistant manager position at a McDonald's until the end of time, and they'll spend all of their paycheck on Netflix, some car that they're paying the lease off for the next 12 years, uh, bunch of games, big ass TV that they can only use sometime during the week, but they won't justify investing in like a program, you
Right.
know, or ditch the people who treat them like shit.
Right. Right.
You know,
Exactly. I mean, again, I guess I could also put myself in that light, right? Where I had again all the reasons to not be uncomfortable. Like, I mean, I come up from a again a very well-off
distinguished,
family.
distinguished family.
Yeah, distinguished family here in the Philippines, right? And yeah, I could like very much just not care about anything. I'd still be safe. I'd still have my safety net. But again, I chose to do the opposite. I chose to, this thing really struck me the most. Like I was just working like I'm always working like late at night too. Like sometimes I get to about like 10 hours, 12 hours work every single day, right? And I went to my uncle's place, a bit of a far travel, right? It's like 6 hours from our city. And then like during dinner, uh my uncle was asking about how work was. And then uh, my mom said that he works a lot. He has like a couple clients. He's swinging different jobs. I don't even know why he's doing it. Like, why does he need to do everything? Everything. It's not like he's like raising a family. But that's not the point. Like, they told me that I could have like been comfortable, right? In that sense, they were telling me that I could live a comfortable life. Why won't I? Again, ties back to my choice being that I want to pursue my dreams, even if it puts me in uncomfortable situations, even if it does put me in those like situations where I could very much just, crumble and not give a shit about it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think the aspect of that is, I mean, pain and pleasure are always going to be a factor when it comes to making a decision. I mean, at the end of the day, we are still animals. You can have whatever you believe, you have whatever beliefs you want about what else we are, but we are still animals, and pain, pleasure. So the thing is that a lot of people, their frame of reference is that the only thing that matters is just an easy life,
Easy life,
right?
yeah.
But what they don't get, and this is even true of people who are freelancers, because there are a lot of people who are freelancers who specifically sought to become like a copywriter specifically because they want to make the same income they're making before, but in less time, so they have more time for their family, which is fine. Like everybody has their own priorities. But the thing is that what people who that's the extent of their ambition and remains that way, because I mean things can evolve too. But people who that is always their frame of reference will never understand what it's like to be someone who being mediocre is the same thing for us, uncomfortability wise, as taking a risk is for most people.
Right,
Because,
right.
but it's sustained. Because if you live that comfy life, you know in the back of your head you could do more. You know that you're just pulling a cop out. You know that you're just taking it easy. And because you can't forget that, that's why you need to, because you can't lie to yourself. And ironically, the thing that most people do, which is lie to yourself, is the thing that not being able to do that keeps you from being comfortable by doing that. And so, like on some level, sometimes you just have to understand that somebody's just not going to
Not
understand
going to stand,
you,
yeah.
and for
I mean,
them, like uh, there's always a situation that you can't control, that it's not an excuse, it's just what you have to do. And I mean, if somebody's not ready to hear that, then they're not ready to hear it, you know?
yeah, man. Anyway, so how do we wrap this up? It's like
Um,
What do you think is like the big message out of like the whole topic of like again decision?
I think particularly because the whole idea of it was that there was always an excuse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because someone could say it's like, well, okay, you were comfortable, you came from a comfortable situation, so it was easier for you to choose to do something because money goes farther in the Philippines, so you had the leeway to do this. And then for me, it's like, oh, you're a Caucasian header, cis male in America is like, so you can do the blah, 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 like to not go into the whole nonsense of how obsessive people get with coming up with those excuses. The thing is that there is always everybody always has a
Reason.
reason why they
Yeah.
couldn't do it, like we said. And just because the excuses that you or I could have made are not the ones that somebody else would have made, it doesn't matter. A number is a number. It doesn't matter what number it is, right? So I think the big thing for me is like there are excuses I could have made, disadvantages that I had that other people who are supposedly not on that privilege spectrum or whatever didn't have. Like I didn't have a family. I was like someone tried assaulting me when I was in kindergarten, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are things I've been through that other people haven't been through. There's social pressures on you that like a poor person in America doesn't have because of like the social about like the social aspects of living in the Philippines and like a more like a like communal or whatever you would call it environment. So I think the big message is it's there is no variance. There is always that temptation to make the excuse to be more comfortable versus to do what you feel reflects like your best life. And regardless of what that is, what makes you decide to not make an excuse, to me, I think at least, is that you never stop holding yourself accountable to what you know you could do. Not what is easy to do or not what you can be reasonably expected to do, but what you know you're capable of. And so that internal, I think Warren Buffett said about his dad, because his dad was like in political office and like always did things his own way, about having your own internal scorecard so that everything you do is measured by you,
By you.
not by the external situation. What do you think?
Yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense. Like you just having like that's the scorecard to just like refer to again and again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and it makes sense, right? It comes full circle because if you're the one who chooses how to respond, regardless of how difficult things can be, then it makes sense that you would have to look inside yourself to make that decision
Yeah.
of what that happens to be. So, yeah, I mean, everybody who joined us, we appreciate you guys, and take care, guys.
Right.